Welcome everybody to week 4 of the Search Academy by Fire Nuggets. Tonight, I'm super stoked. We got Sean Duffy, who's just a hell of a guy and an even better firefighter. Sean's going to talk about split search tonight, and just a quick little bio on Sean. Sean's a 17-year student of the craft and holds many professional and technical certifications. He has an associate's degree in fire science, and he has instructed both locally and nationally, and even internationally. Sean has published work in both fire engineering and firehouse magazines, and is also the co-founder of Build Your Culture, co-host of the Make Do Suburban Fireman podcast, and the Unlock Your Culture webcast. As an active member of the Marion County Fools chapter, the McFools, he enjoys passing on knowledge gained from real-world experiences in an effort to leave it better than he found it. Sean strongly believes in realistic fire training and preparation in order to have the most successful outcomes possible, both on and off the fire ground. Thank you so much for coming in tonight, Sean. We really appreciate this. One more quick little housekeeping tip. And I know everybody knows this. If you have a question, and please ask questions, throw them in the Q&A. If you look on the bottom of your bar, there's a Q&A bar. Throw them in there, and then as soon as we get time, we'll send those to Sean. So any questions you have, we'll make sure they get to Sean, time permitting, obviously. I think everybody got all of the recordings so far. So you've had Ike's, you've had Lombardo's, and you've had Schwalbe's. And as soon as this is over, sometime the next day or two, Jeff is sick, and Jeff takes care of all the computer things. But sometime in the not too distant future, you'll get a recording of this, and you'll have access to it for 6 weeks as well. So without further ado, Sean, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here tonight. It's been a long day, but it's well worth it. So the one thing I just want to tell everybody before we get started is I'm an expert in nothing, right? I mess up just as much as anybody else does. And I constantly learn from every fire we go to. And I think that's the whole point, right? We need to do that. So what I'm going to share with you guys this evening is just things that I've picked up along the way. By no means is it the way. It's just a way. It's what has worked very well for me. Things that I've been shown along the way, or maybe that I wasn't shown, that unfortunately I had to figure out in that moment. So really, tonight we're talking about split search, right? Well, we're going to talk about a couple other things in here as they relate to search, but we're going to try and keep it directed towards the split search. This for some reason, I don't know if it's because people don't understand it. Maybe they're not comfortable with their skill set. They don't train on it, whatever the case is. This isn't taboo, but for some reason, when you bring it up to certain individuals, it boggles their mind. Like, oh, we're not allowed to separate from each other. What do you mean? That's dangerous, right? So I urge everybody, when they're learning, especially about search, that we need to get away from the things that we were taught, 30 years ago. All right. All of our modern advancements are everything's changing. The fire grounds are changing. And we need to evolve with that, right? So this is a very, very beneficial tactic that we can employ to accomplish our number one priority, right? Saving life. So we're not really trying to change anything per se. We just want to enhance it. So safety first, right? We gotta throw that out there. But this is what I'm getting at with it, right? This comes from my buddy OJ. Search and find everyone. That's our job. That's really what we're here for on the fire ground. So we got to make sure that we're doing the things in the best way possible. We're focusing our efforts in areas that make sense, that are going to allow us to put firefighters in locations where victims are most likely to be found, and allow us to be more successful, but also give them the greatest chance of survival, right? With that being said, we don't want to use this as an excuse to make poor decisions based off of what our perception of reality is, right? We say this because often at least for me, in my experiences, I think search has become more of an afterthought than right there at the forefront where it belongs. And I actually developed a class, Searchable versus Survivable, because of those very reasons. I got tired of pulling people out too late in the game and wondering if we would have gotten to them a little bit sooner, if that could have been a different outcome. So safety first, right? We have no problem putting a safety officer on scene saying, hey, if you see something, say something. Well, then that includes search, right? I challenge everybody to speak up. If you're on the fire ground and you know this has to happen and it's not happening, somebody please say something. Like, I'm not saying freelance, but that needs to be known, right? Hey, have we done a search yet? Right? All those things, because sometimes the fire ground gets hectic and it can get bypassed. Everybody's responsibility on the fire ground is search. So we have a couple key points, right? One, we have to have a size up. Now, size ups, they don't just include the fire, they also include our search size up, but that's interior and exterior, right? We take what we know from the outside and we transition into the inside. We're still doing a size up on the inside. Our conditions changing, those type of things. That's a form of size. Size up is
Hey, Sean.
Yo.
Hey, Sean, real quick. You're kind of cutting in and out on us.
Am I really?
Yeah, a little bit.
Can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah, yep. It's
Right,
just like 10 seconds.
I just wonder if it's the hotel Wi-Fi.
Oh, gotcha.
So, if I keep cutting out, just let me know. If I got to get on my phone and do it, I'll do it on the phone. It's no big deal.
Sounds good. Yeah, you're good right now.
Okay, cool. So time is of the essence, right? I think we all know that. We beat that up pretty much every day on Facebook, right? Question is, how are we reducing our time? And a lot of times, like, everybody thinks reducing the time is VES or things like that, and they're not wrong, right? It's a very successful tactic, but reducing our time, that starts at the firehouse, like getting our gear on quick, knowing your area, responding there quickly, stretching line quick, masking up quick, throwing ladders, whatever it is that we got to do. We have to be very, very efficient in that. Once we transition to the inside, our speed in which we search matters, right? Our stance that we choose to take, that's all time. The method that we're choosing to search, right? Split search, oriented search, all of those things, that's all time, right? So this is something that we have to constantly be training on and improving on so that we could shave off that time, because we know there's nothing we could do, right, before we get there, but we can absolutely begin to control what's going on once we arrive. And that's what we got to get better at. So next one would be having a plan. All right. And what I like to do is I like to sit and talk to everybody beforehand. Hey, we have a fire today and there's a rescue. What's the plan? What's the search plan? What's going on? Like, laying that out, even on the way to the call, talking about it, right? Hey, what are we going to do here? Because here's the thing. Anybody who's been a student or maybe has taught, they have a lesson plan, right? And the lesson plan is made so that everything, all the benchmarks get hit, right? And all the important information gets sent out. And the same outlook needs to kind of happen with our jobs in general. But when it comes to search, if we search without a plan, we get ourselves in trouble, right? We're gonna for sure miss something. It's gonna be chaotic. We have to make sure that there's a plan, and if we have to change it, then we change it. But that's where our communication aspect comes in. For example, one of the things I like to throw out there when it comes to having a plan is we're going down the hallway and we're always consistently taught what? Fire room first, right? Get to the fire room, search your way back. That's great. But what happens when we come down a hall and maybe we come upon two rooms and one has an open door and one has a closed door? What is our plan for that? Right? Are we just going to bypass the one with the open door and keep going? Or are we going to take the time to shut that door, knowing that that changes conditions for any possible victims inside, buying us and them time when we come back, right? So just small things like that. That's all part of having your plan. Decisions to make during search. We just talked about, closing door real quick, and we'll get in this a little bit more. But what about decisions, right? Are we going to isolate? Are we going to ventilate? Do we need to? All of those things are things that we need to be thinking about. Whether we're going to split off, how far are we going to split? Is this just one room thing? Are we comfortable in our abilities to know our layout that I can go 2 rooms away from where the hose crew is, or maybe where my partner is? Those are all things that we have to constantly think about. And then search position, right? We talked about that early on. But before we even get to the fire, we even start diving into this class, there's a couple of expectations that we all need to know, right? One of them is our public. The public has expectations of us, right? And their expectations is save my life, save my shit, pretty much in a nutshell, right? So when you show up, they want you to go in and do things, right? They expect that I have a problem. I call the fire department. They put my fire out. They go in and they save anybody that's inside. So we have to live up to that expectation. But we also have cultural expectations, and these can be positive or negative within our organization, depending on how we train ourselves, right? What the cultural expectations are, what are your standards? So in the realm of search, what kind of culture do you have when it comes to search? Are you more aligned in the place of, we'll figure it out when we get there, it's not really a big deal? Or are you actually part of an organization that does value that and trains on that heavily? Make sure that everybody's on the same page, because whether we like it or not, right, there comes a time where somebody's level of training is going to slow us down. If I have the person that we just hired 3 weeks ago assigned to me for a search, I'm probably not going to want to really be doing a split search with this guy right yet, because he doesn't have the knowledge or the experience, right? So how does that translate for everybody else in the firehouse? Well, if you got the same guy that I can't trust that's 10, 15 years in, well, we got a problem. We've got to fix that, right? So there's a learning curve there, and a cultural expectation that we have to have for ourselves as a fire department. Then you have the search, right? How, like we talked about, how far into this incident is our expectation that happens? Is it immediately? Is it close to immediate as possible? Are we following some type of check sheet that puts search far down on a list, and we're worried about assigning crews to tasks that haven't happened yet? All those things make or break our outcomes. And I know that we're talking about search, but we also have to consider the fire, right? We have to be able to read the fire, know what it's doing. What are our expectations as far as crews? Can we attack the fire and search off the line at the same time? 100% we can, right? So keeping a well-balanced view on everything in the fire ground, because it is my opinion that everything on the fire ground supports the search, right? So if we as searchers know that all that stuff is going to support us, we also have to be aware of what we need as well. We talked about task and time, but really here's the biggest thing. We have to comprehend, right? The fire ground is a very coordinated thing, or at least it should be. But if we don't have any comprehension of what those tasks are, it's going to be a damn near impossible task. We have to have a clear understanding, and we want our priorities and our standard operating modes to be ones that make sense, right? Ones that are geared for putting our citizens first. That is going to be critical. So the question I ask everybody to ask themselves, are we looking for reasons to go in and get our victims? Or are we more so looking for reasons to stay out? And I don't think anybody in this class is looking for reasons to stay out. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taking this program, right? Everybody here is very fired up. And that's the unfortunate part, is the people that probably need to be here and hear this stuff aren't here. But that's where you guys get to come in and hopefully take it back to them, and they can learn something, hopefully, right? So we'll touch on risk. This is a slide from my class. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too much. The reason it's in here is because there is a certain level of risk that is involved in literally everything we do. Now, when it comes to operating in a way that's maybe not comfortable for others or goes against what their operational norm is, this word gets tossed out a lot. Well, it's too risky. We can't do that. But here's my problem with that, right? What do we define as risk? I'm almost willing to bet that everybody's assessment, or assumption, I should say, of this word is different, right? You hear risk a lot, save a lot, things like that. But what does that truly mean? Like, if we look at this picture and we see this guy coming out the window, do we deem this success or failure, right? Would we change our mind if this guy was coming out the window with a baby in his hand? those are kind of things. So it's all in perception. And that's where I have a really, really hard time with this, because we are in a very, very risky profession. But that doesn't mean that we have to use that word to handcuff us from doing the things that we swore that we were going to do. And that's really what it is. And I'm not saying to be, you know, a cowboy and just kind of freelance and do whatever you want to do. And we're not asking anybody to put themselves on a suicide mission. What we're asking people to understand is that risk has almost no definite definition to our fire service, right? And because it's open to interpretation like that, anybody can look at the word and have varying opinions of what a risk level or an acceptable risk level is. So for me, right, the risk to me has always been relatively small, given the equipment experience and my training and everything else, compared to the person that's inside that doesn't have any of those things. That's my stance on it, right? There's a reason why we go into these houses wearing the best protective gear that we have. Because even after all the calculations we have, there is some sort of residual risk of death or injury that we might be exposed to. That's what people have to understand, is we have a tough job. We have to make decisions on the fly, and we have to make the best decisions. We don't want to make reckless ones to willingly endanger ourselves or our crews or whatever, but we also cannot be too comfortable hiding behind terminology as a reason of why we did or did not do something, right? We have the privilege of being the person who is given the responsibility for making decisions to the incapacitated and at risk, right? These are complete strangers. They don't know us, but they have given us their entire trust to make life and death decisions on their behalf or their family's behalf, on their property, or whatever it is when they're not able to do so. So let us not forget that moral obligation that we have to uphold their trust and make the decisions that they would ask for if they had a say. Now that we get all through all that stuff, we can actually start talking about some split search, right? This is my preferred type of search. I would choose this every single time as long as conditions are favorable, right? The split search is typically performed when favorable conditions exist and you have a comfortable and competent crew or fire attack is in place, right? And that's when fire attack's in place, we tend to think of the split search as what they call the engine search or searching off the line. It's still a form of split search, right? You're splitting that crew to accomplish multiple things at once. The best thing that the reason I like split search the most is because I feel it's like the best thing to choose to decrease our search time. You can literally cut your search time in half, and that gives our civilians a higher chance of survival. So who wouldn't want to do that, right? I think every single firefighter, hopefully, should want to do the things that shave off time, not only for us, but for our civilians. Nick, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but last I looked at the survey, split search has the highest percentage of survival rate. I think out of all types of search, split search was 41% survival rate. Is that correct, Nick?
No, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pulling it up now. I'll chime in a second.
Okay, yeah. So I believe as the last time that I looked at the survey, that was the number. And the thing I'm going to tell you guys, we're talking about numbers and everything else. Anybody who looks at these numbers, one, understand what they mean, and two, understand that they can change. Like we can have an incident tomorrow, and what you heard today could be very different. So these are something that you're going to have to kind of stay up with, make sure that they're current. But point being is, it is a very, very successful tactic that has a very significant outcome for our civilians.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
So I got the numbers. So split search has the highest percentage of total recorded rescues at 37%.
37. Okay.
And it's just shy of having the highest survival rate. Survival rate goes oriented at 62%, split and VES are at 61%. Left hand, right hand is 58, and then a search line for probably a bunch of reasons is 39%.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely, man.
Guys, I don't want to speak for Nick, but Nick is a key resource to me. I always ask him. He's great with this stuff. So if there's something you don't really understand how you got those numbers or anything like that, please reach out to him or anybody on the survey team. They'll be able to help you because it's important that we understand that and implement it appropriately. So going back to it, this is the left-hand search pattern. This comes straight out of VSA manual, right? Here's the problem with this. As you see, what they teach us is come in, hug the wall, come in, hug the wall, and just kind of go out, and it's just a bunch of left turns. So my problem with this is two things. One, often with this, I see that two firefighters go in the room, which is not really necessary. If you have two firefighters, what would make more sense was that this room here, let's see if I can get my mouse over to it. This room here, you put one firefighter in the search, and the other firefighter comes to this room and search. You're talking about a 10 by 10, maybe a 10 by 12 room. It shouldn't take you too long to search. And really, how far are you guys from each other? The distance of this wall, right? I mean, you're never, and when you're searching, you're never really as far as you think you are from an exit, right? A window or a door or something like that. So staying oriented is half the battle. I think that this was made up because firefighters, they get their heart rates up and they get all crazy and things like this. And this is an easy way to make sure that, hey, no matter what you do, you could probably do this choo-choo line and be okay. But we got to get away from that, right? We got to get to what makes sense, which would be, I don't want to say leapfrogging because that to me, that's a different thing. But one firefighter in this room, one firefighter in this room cover more space in the same amount of time, right? The other side of this is when we do a pattern like this and we come through, how long does it take before we get to this other side? What if there's a room on the side of this hallway over here? How long is it going to take us to do this painfully slow search until we get over here? It's probably going to take a couple minutes, and that's time wasted, right? So it'd be better if we kind of come off the wall a little bit, one firefighter here, maybe one firefighter here. We kind of move down this. First firefighter finds a room, they peel in. Second firefighter on that split search, keep searching down here. If there's nothing, right, then we're good. You're still clearing this area. By the time you get to about right here, if that's what you choose to do, this firefighter should hopefully be right about here. Finds this next room. So again, you're clearing more space, and any rooms that are on this side are getting hit, and all the rooms that are on this side are getting hit. So why are we taught this? This is me and my buddy just kind of messing around. We put baby powder on the floor to prove a point to our training division that this style of search, not only is it slow, but your hands are occupied, your vision's limited to the floor, you're just not as aware as you think you are, and often you miss the victim. So we put this dummy right here in the middle of the floor, and guess what? We searched it, and what they were able to see is that we came around. We came all the way around it, and we missed it. So we were right here. We missed them. Why? Because we're not sweeping that tool. This tool gets heavy. After a while, this is small muscle groups here. You tend not to swing those tools and drag it. And then we teach firefighters to do something stupid like, hey, keep your other hand on the wall, which now does what? Both my hands that should be searching are not, right? They're occupied with other tasks. So I prefer not to do it this way. The other thing is this guy behind me is searching the same few feet that I just searched. He should really spread off, right? On the other side of this wall in this building is another room. So it would have been beneficial for me to do this. This is a small little square. He could have gotten this one and we would have been done, right? We timed that. I think it took us, the way that the textbook wanted us to do it, it took us 5 minutes to clear 2 rooms, which is way too slow, right? The other thing is, if you find a victim, naturally you want to go out the same way you came because that's really all you know is staying oriented to this wall. Well, on a split search, when you're split, what happens when I find a victim in a room? right? I can isolate myself in that room and just go right out that window. My partner can finish his search up and then come assist me if I need help, right? Or go on to the next room and do that while we're waiting on a crew to come get this victim. Point I'm getting at is when you split like that, you're oriented to more of the structure other than the same spot that your partner is in, which it could be very, very beneficial if things go south and conditions change, or we find a victim, right? The problem with this here is a lot of times, if I did find this victim, we're going to go out and I'm going to tell this guy, hey, where are we going? And he's going to say, I don't know, because the only thing he's doing is following me, right? He's not paying attention. We're branching off to try and search for the other things that we need. So most rooms can be easily searched by one person, and that's also the benefit of the split search, right? We have to use our staffing to our advantage. We unfortunately are in a time now where we don't have much staffing levels. So we need to be able to still accomplish the same task, do it more quickly, right? Because our fires are quicker and things like that, and we just don't have much time. We're already, maybe 8 minutes in before we even got to the scene. So how are we buying back that time? Split search is a great way to buy back that time. If I tell you that most residential structures are 3 bedrooms, right, and you're following me, and we're only going 1 room at a time, that means we're only prioritizing 1 out of those 3 bedrooms when we could be prioritizing at least 2 immediately, right? Cut that search time in half. So here's a couple of considerations when we do search, especially when we're talking about this style of search. We have to know what our ability is, right? Like we just talked about staffing. What can you accomplish with your staffing, right? What's your level of experience or your level of fitness? Fitness is a huge thing. Search on the fire ground is probably one of the most difficult things you're going to do. So your fitness matters. But what about time, right? We talk about time. And what we need to know about time is, like we said, response times plays a matter in there, or plays a role in that matter. But what about once we get on scene? We're on scene. We talked about having a search plan. Well, how long does it take you to formulate that plan? And once you formulate it, how long does it take you to actually start implementing it, right, and getting it into play? But knowledge, I think knowledge is the big thing here. Do we truly understand what it is we're doing, right? If somebody says, hey, I need you to go in there and do a search. Well, any one of us can go in there and stumble upon a victim. That doesn't mean we searched for that victim. We just got lucky and we found them, right? Do you truly understand search and rescue? Rescue being the removal process, search being the act of physically trying to locate them. Do you understand what's being asked of you? So if somebody says, hey, in this case, let's do a split search, do you even know what that means? Right? Now's not the time to go, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? And then you're going to have a discussion trying to explain it in the middle of a fire. That doesn't work. Right?
Hey, Sean?
Yeah.
Your audio is kind of cutting in and out intermittently again.
All right.
It's not horrible. It's just, it gets a little bit muffled here and there.
Can you still hear me when it gets muffled?
Yes.
Okay. I can try and switch to like the actual like podcast microphone I have. If you want me to try that, that's fine. See if that works better.
Yeah, let's try that.
All right. Let me just give me like 2 minutes.
Perfect, buddy. All right. And for all our listeners right now, don't be shy with your questions. I mean, we got one of the smartest cats when it comes to search at our fingertips tonight. So if you have any questions, I know Sean is more than willing to answer them. And we had a little conversation before this class started, and he kind of reiterated the fact that he would rather have a discussion than a monologue for everybody. So if you guys have any questions, don't be shy. You ask. If you write it down, we'll make sure he gets them.
Yeah, for sure. Is that better now?
Nope, not right now. It's okay. We can go back to what we were doing. It wasn't horrible. I just thought I'd chime in if there was something that you were doing. The last couple times after we mentioned it, it seemed to correct itself really quickly.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. If it doesn't work out, you just let me know and I'll switch back to this.
Okay.
Current practice. That's where we're at. Right? we talked about if you understand what's being asked of you. How about current practice? Are you up to date on current practices? You know, what the fire service is deeming as best practice? Are you actually physically going out like to a conference or a local training, or taking online stuff how you work with, trying to figure out, hey, maybe I don't have the experience as you. Tell me how this works, what works best for you, and then try and figure it out. Figure out what works best. Maybe it's going to be modified, right? Something I show you may not be the best way for you, so you might have to take it modified. Point being is you're still trying to learn. A lot of times, if I see it really.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
I'm sorry to be an ass. Could you try calling in? It seems to be getting worse potentially.
You want me to call in?
Yeah.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Perfect. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate everyone's patience too. Sorry. He's down at the Orlando Fire Conference right now. He's in a hotel, and this is probably due to poor Wi-Fi at that hotel. I wonder what everybody is looking up on their Wi-Fi connections at a hotel. I like a lot of what Sean's saying right now. I thought that visual that he had, that picture of him and his partner kind of doing the IFSA search, or kind of the tech school search. I thought that was powerful, and something that I've always wondered was, you with us there, handsome?
Yeah, buddy. I just got it.
Okay, perfect.
Is that better?
Yeah. One thing I always wondered was, why is everybody searching walls? Why do they teach us to search walls? Do you have any thoughts on that, Sean?
Honestly, for me, I think it's a comfort thing, to be honest. And I don't want to speak for anybody who might teach at academies or anything like that. But yeah, I think, you know, firefighters are creatures of habit. So we get comfortable doing one thing a certain way. And that's what we tend to do. But a lot of it, personally, is I've seen a tremendous amount of fear mongering in the fire service. Like, if you separate from your partner, you will die. If you leave the wall, you will die. You get lost. And I mean, that's even outside of publications and IFSA manuals. You know, you can go back a little bit and read some publications and even trade magazines. And at that time period, maybe that's what was being taught, and that's what everybody believed. The problem is, and like I said, I don't want to ever say that it's wrong, but the problem with that is there comes a time where, hey, things change, right? So when do we, as a fire service, if we're truly professionals, go back, analyze that stuff, and realize, like, hey, is this really still what needs to be taught, right? Any line of duty death that happens, although it's very, very unfortunate, we learn a ton from, right? There's always those reports that happen, and we find the fact findings and all that stuff. We need to be teaching that stuff in the fire academy, and this is the why, right? And I think that's a lot of times that gets missed in our trainings is the why. You know, we hear it all the time. Well, that's just the way it's always been, or I don't know. That's what somebody showed me 20 years ago. So challenge yourself. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say, like, I don't truly understand this. I don't think that this really is the best way. So let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. What works best? And, you know, not to get too long-winded, but everybody likes to hang their head on IFSA. And here's my problem with that. IFSA is a for-profit publishing company. They have zero relevance to what we do on the fireground. They don't make decisions for us.
Hey, Sean, we're starting to lose you again.
Are you losing me again?
Yeah. Are you having to use? Are you using like plug-in headphones or anything?
No, dude. I'm just using my phone.
Huh.
Yeah, it's probably this hotel Wi-Fi. It's crazy.
Yeah. Because now we're hearing you good, but just a second ago it was muffling. It was kind of cutting out on us.
I'm just gonna put my phone down right here, right where you can hear me. But you know, it's a for publishing, you know, or for-profit publishing company, and we choose to put a lot of stake into, well, that's the way it has to be done. And I think that causes a lot of problems. Did that answer your question?
It did. Sorry, I was talking and I was muted. We got another question for you here too. This comes from Alex Klein. He says, what are your trigger points specifically regarding conditions from when you would go from a split search to a more oriented search?
The trigger points meaning like, hey, when it's time to transition from a split search more of an oriented search. Is that what he's asking?
Correct. Yeah. From a conditions perspective?
So for me, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak what I know. A lot of my decision goes based off of, is there a timeline in play? And if there is, are they making good headway on this fire? If they're getting it pretty good and it's manageable, then I'll stick with that split search. But if we're splitting off, right, and we're doing these things, because one of the things that you got to do on a split search is, anytime you enter a room, you need to close that door behind you and isolate yourself. One, we do that because if you're in a room and you can see, you really want to take that window and get that ventilation happening. That improves your visibility for your search. It also improves the conditions for any potential victims inside. And God forbid you miss them on that search, then you left them in an area that's constantly exhausting. So their conditions are always improving. So I say that because if you close the door and you go in this room and you open the door and conditions are definitely changed, maybe you had moderate visibility and now you have like low visibility, that's probably a sign that you want to start getting closer more to that oriented search and not really straying too far off from your partner and your objective. When you do that stuff though, like it doesn't hurt to call command, like, hey, can we get a progress report on fire attack, or ventilation or whatever else is going on around you? Because as much as we all want to search every square inch, we have to be real with ourselves and understand that there are going to be moments where we might only been able to get in and search one room and it's time to go. Like that's all we can do for this moment, right? And then when conditions are favorable again, then we'll come back to it. And that's where firefighters get themselves in trouble. They don't know when to transition from that search to saying, hey, maybe we need to bring it tighter in. If you're going into a larger room, hey, maybe we need to bring this tighter in, or conditions have changed. Maybe we need to start thinking about getting out of here, right? Just a couple of things to consider. So I don't know if that answers his question, but that would be the defining factor for me. If we're moving and conditions are rapidly changing, that fire's pushing down on me. Fire techs like reporting that they're having a hard time getting to the fire or anything like that. Those are all things in my mind that say this is not going to end well if we stay here. We should probably leave. Or, hey, they're on their way, they're making headway. It's just, for whatever reason, it's kicking their ass a little bit. Maybe we need to come in, shelter in place, search that room, and then get a progress report and then go from there. Those would be my big trigger points.
Yeah, thank you, man. I think that's helpful. I think that's what he was looking for.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I know Nick and I talk. Sometimes you'll see this number vary a little bit. Usually you'll see it as 230. What this is when Brian Brush, or I should say Chief Brush, did his civilian research project, what he found was every 2 hours and 27 minutes in this country, civilian life is being saved by the direct actions of firefighters on scene. So what does that look like for us? Well, that's almost about 10 rescues a day, right? And initially, says seven of those survived, but initially 74% survival rate for those when they're found. So when we go in and we're dispatched to a single family, we can anticipate at least one victim, most likely more. But when we're going to like multifamily, apartment complex, things like that, what we're going to see is we're going to get 3 or more victims on average, right? What this data tells us and what this does for us, whatever search mode you're choosing, it tells us that rescues are not just possible, but they're probable. We should be in the mindset that every time we're going to a fire, we are going to have a rescue, because the likelihood is pretty high. And anybody who follows the survey is going to find that out. I mean, you go and follow the Firefighter Rescue Survey Facebook page, and there's not a day that goes by where you at least get one rescue. Sometimes there's multiple at a fire. Sometimes there's multiple throughout the country. People are being pulled from burning structures daily. All right. So yes, it does matter how we choose to search and when we choose to search. That all makes a huge difference in our outcomes. So when we look at arrival time to when we get to the victim, what do we look at? These are our survival rates. Less than 2 minutes, and that's awesome. I don't think that unless it's right around the corner from the firehouse, I don't know if I would ever be able to get there in less than 2 minutes. We're gonna fall somewhere, at least where I work, we're gonna fall somewhere between the 6 and 8 minute range. But look at the 2 to 6 minutes in that range. That's 67, 62%. That's great. Now, if we take everything from less than 2 minutes and we stop about the 8 minute mark, what that tells us is that the first 8 minutes that we're on scene, that's going to account for nearly 64% of our victims' chance to survive. So every minute that we either waste doing a painfully slow search because we've chosen the wrong technique, or we don't know what that is, or we haven't searched, or any of those things, that goes down. And if you dig into the data, you see greater than 8 minutes goes to as low as 3%. That 3% goes all the way from 8 minutes to 1 hour, right? That's where that number comes from. Fact is, we just gotta really understand that, like, we can't just check a box like, yeah, I sent crews inside to search. That's great. That doesn't mean they were effective, though, right? So how you search and how you remove is going to play a vital role in your success. So we have here, right, what to search for. Well, we know, right? We know from everything else that we search for fire and life. We tend to hit on search and rescue a lot as finding people, and that's not wrong. But what we need to understand, though, is that our job isn't just to find people, it's to find fire. So what better way if we are splitting, right? Maybe we can find that fire quicker, isolate it, and report it to the host crew and tell them and command where the location of that is, right? If we can get in there real quick, if the fire's not that bad, we get in there real quick and do a quick search and then isolate the fire, then we need to do that too, right? There's all kinds of things you can do. Maybe searching with a water can. Searching with a water can is great for a split search. It's my preferred way. If I'm going in ahead of the line, I'm taking a water can. One, you put a lot of fire out. It's not an extinguishment tool, so don't get that confused. But you can put a lot of fire out and keep it in check while somebody searches a room, or you can beat that fire back and then isolate it. Or the third thing, hey, what happens when you are searching and conditions rapidly change? You need a way to protect yourself or that victim. Now you have something, right? It's 50 feet for 50 seconds. It's 2.5 gallons of water. I mean, it will do some damage. If you don't believe me, look at some videos. You'll see, I mean, you could damn near put a fully involved room out with it if you use it correctly. So it's a very, very good tool. And it's very beneficial to have. I would not recommend searching with it physically, like every square inch. That's something just like your tool, like leave it by the door, do your search, and it's there when you come back, pick it up and move on. So when we locate, right, and isolate, we need to communicate the fire. We touched on that, right? What happens when we get in there and we find that fire is it actually beneficial for the stretch, because we get to tell the fire attack, the most appropriate route to stretch that line. Like we just talked about, we're creatures of habit. So front door all the time. That may not be the best way to attack this fire. So we are recon. That's what we do as searchers. So we need to gather as much intel as possible. All right, let me see here. Where's my clicker? There we go. Also, I know we've been talking about a lot of removal, like we kind of hitting on it. The one thing I want to understand, and we'll talk about this in a minute when we get further on, is when you find a victim, your search is not complete, okay? And I have to throw that out there because I see it in training and I see it in the fire ground where they find a dog or a person and they just, all focus is on that and the search tends to go down. So in relation to split search, what my crew and I have trained ourselves to do, and it works very well, we go to a fire with 6 guys. That's our daily staffing. So we have to make it work. We go in on a split search. We're going to do this split search. Let's say I find a victim. I know how to drag up to at least a 300-pound victim by myself and get them prepped for removal by myself, which allows my partner to continue searching that area and maybe an additional area, right? Because I'm handling the removal process. I have somebody coming to get me, right? Or coming to my location, maybe with a ladder, or if it's the first floor, they're just coming to where the window where I'm at. I can get that person out. My partner is still searching, right? And this is the benefit of knowing your limitations and knowing how to really properly move victims and do all those things. Because if he stops or she and they come to me, the search is halted. Hey, that might be what you have to do. But if you can train yourself to do it differently and still be effective, even if I still needed help, they're not that far from me, right? 10 feet at the most, maybe. Again, we're not talking about freelancing. We're just talking about the general areas right around you. All right. So targeted search. We talked earlier, we said that this is an inside and outside tactic, very much so. We talked about having, that the purpose of this is that you're going to have the best chances of finding victims. We are looking for viable victims in obvious places. Okay. Viable victims. So be smart about this. Obviously, in this picture, you see fire rolling out like that. That's not to say that there's not a space in that room where a victim could be laying, and we might just have to put some water on that, and then we can get them. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying use your mind. Okay. if it's wall to wall, treetops, tall, full of fire, probably not a viable victim. So we need to look other obvious places where victims are likely to be found. How do we do that? We start our search at the place within our structure that has the highest potential for civilians. Typically, you're going to see this be bedrooms or an egress point, maybe 6 feet within a window or an exterior door, right? It used to be 18 out of 24 hours that we're finding our victims in bedrooms, and now I think we're approaching closer to the 23 out of 24 hours a day we're finding victims in bedrooms. So that tells us what? Hallways and bedrooms should be high on our search priorities. Well, what does that sound like to you? Sounds like a split search to me, right? So believe it was 45% of the time. I think it's 45% of the time victims are found in bedrooms. Here, yeah. So these are all the locations where we're likely to find victims. And what you see, bedrooms being number one, right? Family rooms, hallways. Those are our highest percentage. Most of our victims are found on the floor. I don't think that's any secret there. But this picture is a great example. You see like the space here, you got a room on one side and a room down the hall. That's a perfect scenario where we can just tag team and get that knocked out real quick. So here we're talking about a split search, right? Which would be like a targeted split search. These you could find these on Search Culture website. This Justin McWilliams and the guys, Brothers in Battle. They do a lot of this stuff. Great dudes, very, very knowledgeable. But here's what this would look like. All right. Red representing firefighter 1, green representing firefighter 2. Right. They're going to enter the bedrooms independently. They'll isolate the room and ventilate. Right. If visibility is low or near zero, they're going to bring their Halligan and they're going to take out a window. But you want to leave the sash intact. Now, the reason for doing that is you don't want to expel too much energy. Not every sash is wood. Sometimes those aluminum sashes will kick your ass. So if you don't really have to worry about taking out the sash yet, save your energy, just get the ventilation underway. If your visibility is moderate to high, you could probably honestly just manipulate the window lock and open the thing, right? My preference is whenever we dive into a room, I like to leave the Halligan in the hallway, right? That way that allows me to search with both hands. And A lot of times, if I come to the window and I can open it, I'll just push off the spring and call it good. But what you'll see is the firefighters are going to start their search here in the bedroom, right? Because those victims have a higher risk of being in the elements, especially on the bed, right? So UL studies higher in the elements, higher exposure, less survival rate, right? Pretty common sense. But when we finish searching this room, we're going to come out, we're going to exit, close the door again, and we're going to meet back up in the hallway and continue this split search of this house. So as you see, one takes his room, the other bypasses, and they go. So let me bring the mouse over here so you can see. So I would dip in here, search this real quick. My partner's taking off this way. Why are they going this way instead of following the wall and coming in here? Because if they follow this wall, they come in here, what's likely to happen is duplication of effort, right? I don't know that he made this turn. I come out of here, boom. I just searched the same room that person did, and now we're all over the place. We're kind of confused. So when we say split, it's a true split. Like you take the left, I'll take the right type deal. So this side room gets searched, and you come down the hall, and now you see they're clearing this hallway, and they split off. They're not that far, right? Nowhere in this whole thing, if I was in trouble or I needed my partner, would I be unable to get to them or them get to me, right? And for those of you who are not familiar with Project Mayday, please research that because they have a lot of statistics on firefighters and the 2 in 2 out thing and how that applies to us. A lot of times when we get ourselves in trouble, we're either self-rescue or rescued by another interior crew or by our own crew. So we have an 88% chance that if something happens, that somebody inside of that structure, whether it be ourselves or somebody else, is going to be able to rescue us from that situation. Also, further proving what? Hey, being inside of a structure, the more people we have in there, the safer it is for us, right? So we have a search priority. Okay, our priorities, as we discussed already, are bedrooms and then searching egress points as we move in. So we want to, like, when it comes to the bedrooms, let's say, most rooms, if it's not a kid's room, it's got a bed. We're obviously going to search the bed first, search on top, search under it, that kind of thing. But what about bunk beds? When we come to the bunk beds, you want to make sure you get that top one first, and then to the bottom, and then go under. So in that systematic order. The fire apartment room or the fire compartment or room is the priority, right? Fire tech is typically going to search that immediate area, and then the adjacent rooms become their next priority. Same for us. So if we're ahead of the hand line, we don't have one yet, obviously going closest to the fire, that's going to be our main priority, then adjacent from there, working backwards. And that's why when we come across a door that's open, we need to shut it, right? We need to get to that fire first, great. But we could still take that moment, shut that door for that victim over there, or that might be in there, buying them time till we can come back to them. So let's talk about human behavior, right? The thing about fires and human behavior, which makes our split search effective, is that civilians really tend to head directly towards their main routes of egress. If they're not aware of the fire, they might be trying to self-evacuate, and they become overcome by smoke, which oftentimes when this happens, they're going to be slumped over either in chairs or on couches, maybe laying in their bed or on the floor or someplace like that, right? But they're still going to be in the main pathways to their egress. When it comes to children, they're going to want to try and head towards their favorite spots, right? Or maybe try and find their siblings or parents. Just their main concern is finding safety. So where do they feel safe? So that comes us into our size up too, right? If we know that, hey, we're coming in this room, maybe we have a crib, things like that, or we know an age of the victim. Parents are outside, tells us that their child is 5 years old. We kind of know what to expect when we go into a room hey, maybe we should take a deeper look into like laundry baskets or play bins and things like that, because that's where they often feel safe. If they're not able to get to their room, they're going to probably stay at ground level, trying to get that nice cool air. And they're going to head into other familiar spots. Like, I don't know about anybody else's kids, but my kids, they love to hide in cabinets in my kitchen. Scares the crap out of me because I'll be walking through and all of a sudden they'll just pop out of nowhere, right? So just something to think about, like, hey, you know, outside of your traditional things that you're going to be searching for, you need to check those spots. Really, you'll most likely find them in places that they're playing or spend most of their day. So if you look at U.S. Fire Administration, 31% of the victims that were found were trying to escape, and 37% are sleeping. So when it talks about human behavior and how that relates to our searches and everything else, it's no wonder why bedrooms are one of the highest spots that we're going to find them, right? Because being asleep is one of the leading human factors to death in fires. We're going to talk about this hand line, right? And how it protects us, right? We've all seen a hand line get drugged through everything, that every little square inch. It's not what it's there for. It's there to protect us and our means of egress. But down at the bottom is really what I want everyone to focus on is 28% of our recorded rescues have fire or fire and smoke at the victim's location, right? Why is that, right? Well, if we go a little further, we know that we have about roughly a 44% survival rate when we have these conditions at the victim's location. And that's where a split search works incredibly well. This is where we win with a split search most of the time, because one person fights the fire and the other one clears the immediate areas closest to the fire, right? That's why this is so effective. Think about it. The nozzle is going where? To the fire. Where are the people? They're trying to get away from the fire. So somewhere between the exit and the fire, you're most likely going to find these people, right? So it only makes sense that hose lines are finding victims. It doesn't mean we just walk over a victim and things like that, right? Or it doesn't mean that, hey, I'm assigned to the hose line, so I'm not going to search this bedroom that's 2 feet next to me, right? We can be force multipliers and we can do multiple things at once. We have to get outside of that. And so one of the things that really, really irks me in our fire service is we tend to break things down into engine company functions or truck company functions. Why that might work really well in like urban environments, the majority of us who work in suburban atmospheres, we don't have the luxury of dedicated teams. So guess what that means? We have to be good at everything. So again, everybody needs to learn how to search. They need to learn how to search off the line. They need to learn how to split search. They need to know how to VES, all of those things.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
When you talk about searching off the line, does that mean after the fire is knocked down? Does that mean as you guys are advancing in? What does that mean, like operationally for you?
So everybody probably has a different lingo that they use. For me, operationally, when we talk about searching off the line, if I'm on the hand line, I'm searching on my way to the fire, right? It's not a full-on committed search. I'm just kind of like searching the immediate areas around me while we're moving line, and we're focused on getting that line into play. Now, what you'll see a lot of times is once that line is in place, the backup person generally tends to just sit there and watch the fire, like, right? So where we adapted searching off the line is, well, I don't really need you to watch it, right? There's no need for you to manage line for me right now. We're right where we need to be. What I do need you to do, though, is clear these immediate areas, whether it be a bathroom or a bedroom, clear them, right? Because, and we'll talk about this a little later on, but what you create when you stretch a hand line in is you actually split the house. You create a short side of the house and a long side of the house. And if we're talking about being effective as we can, the best thing we can do is search that immediate area, right? And then relay that information onto the next person who might be searching the other side, saying, hey, this area is clear, we already searched it. versus sitting and waiting and doing nothing. Now, if you do find a Jason in this situation, what we've trained to do is nozzle man keep flowing water. The person who's found the victim report that, drag the victim into an area of refuge, whether it be that next room or whatever, and start that removal process. The worst thing you can do is ask the nozzle man to shut down the line and come help you remove the victim, or leave the victim in play and have somebody else get them. That could be, how, who knows how long, right? So those are a couple things that we relate to with it. So it's definitely not a full committed search, but once that line is in place, it does become a full committed search to the immediate areas adjacent to you.
Okay, that was a really good answer, Sean. So first off, we're kind of having that the same audio issues every now and again, and it just happened for the last like 30 seconds or so. Prior to that, it was beautiful.
Oh no. Okay.
I know. I apologize to everybody out there. Everyone's looking at some stuff in the hotel Wi-Fi. So when you attack that fire, you got water on the fire. It sounds like you're doing more or less like a split search with the attack crew. What happens to, say there's a search crew inside that building as well, or search crews? If they started out as oriented, is the goal to get them to a split search once water's on this fire and we got a knockdown as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, split search it's always going to be my preferred method. If you start out oriented, the minute that you can do a split, I always think that's the way to go, especially if you're able to accomplish it. The biggest thing I think people get hung up on with search is that water on the fire, right? Oh, well, I can't do anything till water's on the fire. Okay, well, if that's your excuse now, water's on the fire, what's your excuse now, right? Why won't you do it? So, yeah, it's kind of one of those, what I like to call like calling the audible. You search how you can. Once water's on fire and you get more crews that are coming in, yeah, have those guys transition into that split search. There's no reason not to. It's what is there to fear? The fire's not going to get you anymore. Things are being ventilated, so your visibility should probably improve too. So, in all actuality, doing that split search is probably going to be pretty quick for you to be able to do.
And then just to aid the other crews, when I'm searching, I get very task saturated. I miss a lot of the clues and cues going on around me at times. Does there some way that you clue everyone in on the fire ground that water is on the fire? Do you guys verbalize that on the radio? Is there anything else that happens to help clue everybody else in, like, hey, water's on the fire, take a look up and get a peek of your surroundings, and can you potentially then split to or go to a split search?
Yeah, so for us, we're always going to verbalize water on the fire. So we have a couple of benchmarks. Water on the fire is number one. That kind of lets everybody know that, like, okay, we're at the seat of the fire, we're starting to attack it. Two, once we get a good handle on the fire and the fire is knocked down, we'll verbalize that. So we'll say, engine 7-1 to command, fire is knocked down this time. I need some ventilation or whatever else that we need. So if you're listening, right, like you said, you can get so involved in what's going on. Those are the little tidbits for you to stop real quick and be like, oh, hey, great. That's paramount for us because, like I said, we have 6 guys. So where you run into trouble with the split search is assuming that things are done that maybe aren't being done, and other people assuming the same thing. And now you might be like cut off by fire or something like that, right? So definitely having water on the fire and verbalizing that and having those benchmarks is going to make it a lot easier and probably more comfortable for the crews that are going to transition into the search role. But that's how we do it. I don't know if does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was beautiful, man. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Yeah, no problem at all. Can you hear me okay now? Is it going all right?
Right now, you're loud and clear. Over the past couple minutes, there's been a couple little, 5 seconds where it gets real quiet again, and then you get back to normal volume.
I'm sorry, man. Like I said, if anybody has questions or they want a copy of this, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk to them personally. To do this, up to something they might have missed.
We get it, man. Sometimes we can't control technology. We appreciate your patience and being so receptive to us chiming in and telling you to stand on one foot to see if your reception's better.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. This is kind of, I think this kind of goes along the lines of what you were just asking me, Nick. Kind of clarifies it a little bit more. Here, this blue line, that's your fire attack. So the fire attack, if they're going in, obviously they're searching the wall. They're just kind of doing a real quick search of the wall and they're peeling off into the fire. As you see, the water, the nozzle is starting to flow water. So what we call the heel man, the number 2 guy, is going to peel off and search that space behind it. Well, we've got water on the fire, so we address that, right? We said that on the radio, water's on the fire. Heel man to search this. Now we're getting more people, and this is split search. Right? This is where you can transition from that one oriented search by the heel. Although it's technically a split, but that one guy's just maintaining that orientation, that room searching. This other group's going to come in here and take over the search. And this is where they're going to do what they call the target split, which is they come in this hallway, they split the hallway, and then one goes left and the other takes that back. Right? What that's going to allow them to do is clear all that. Notice they bypass the bathroom, and that's by design. All right, because like we said, our main priority is focusing our efforts on the places that our victims are most likely to be right now. And we know through survey data and experience and everything else that would be like living rooms or bathrooms. Hence the 3 colors there, yellow, green, and blue. So you've hit 3 of your biggest target areas. Now, as these 2 searchers, firefighter 1 and firefighter 2, make their way back down the hall, they can peel off, search this bathroom, and get that done, and your search is done, right? So if you look over here, you have a laundry room, and over here you have the bathroom. So what that would look like is we come back down, both firefighters would come through here. We come back down, and again, we split. One goes to the left, one goes to the right, finish these rooms out, meet back up in the hallway, and we come back out where we were. Right? Pretty simple, down and dirty search. This is most likely, if you're getting an engine company or 2 on scene pretty close behind each other, this is the ideal situation when you're talking about split search. So here's another one. Again, larger style as we see. This one has the living room and the kitchen in the rear. Here's what we think about when we come to split search. As we talked about, victims that are further from the fire and lower in the space have highest probability of survival. So what is our priority right now? Our main priority at this point is going to be getting water on the fire. Heel man's going to split, take this room. Firefighter 1 takes this room, firefighter 2 takes this room. All these target areas, and then we both move down here. And then guess what happens? Instead of coming down this way, I'm going to go follow the wall again, right? So this firefighter's going to be on the wall and dip left. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to be searching. I'm going to hit this room. I'm going to start doing all these areas. Now, it doesn't have to be a wall like this. Understand the dimensions of a room are dimensions of a room, but once you put furniture in there and you divide it up by walls, that area becomes smaller. So if I come over here and I'm searching this space, right, I can search all around in a pattern. So I can come around here, come down, search this, come over here, search this couch, get this, right, search this, come over here, search this. Yes, I did not get this yet, but this guy is going to come out and I'm going to come out, and then we're going to clean this up on the end, right? So the reason for being that type of pattern is victims on furniture or laying on the floor, right? If that makes sense to everybody. Any questions so far?
No questions right now. But Sean, we're a little over halfway through. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break?
Yep.
And then we'll try to fix this audio as well.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
We got one more quick question. This is from Chris Horner. He says, does a tick have a place when doing a split search?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back one. All right, so here's the thing about thermal imagers. I am not against them, but I don't think that they need to replace our traditional methods of search either. A lot of people will get tunnel vision. They'll like overly rely on those things and you're not really aware. So use it, scan it, drop it, and search. The other thing with thermal imagers is that they're not going to see things that are covered by insulators, meaning like shower curtains, blankets, clothes, things like that. They're not going to pick up any heat signatures in those. So you really, really have to pay attention to what you're looking at. You can come in. One of the best examples is like a shower door that's glass. Well, that's just going to look like a large mirror to you. And if you don't go and investigate it to find out that it's really not, you might miss somebody. With that being said, yes, 100%, because we'll take this example. We cleared these rooms, right? We probably don't need a thermal imager too much for these. Like if you want to use it for a quick scan, fine, whatever. But where we're going to need it more is hallways or larger rooms, right? So this is actually, I'm glad this question came up, because when you talk about ticks, you have different types of searches with thermal imagers. You have what's called a tick directed, a tick led, point to point, all those different things. And that's conversation for another day. But this might be a situation that if you do have a thermal imager, what we do is we clear this space. This firefighter here goes, that person with the imager stays here, and you're scanning, right? And you're directing, kind of scanning that area. But what you can also do is scan this area, kind of get a layout of where you're going next, get a really good rough scan. That doesn't mean that you have to stay here though, all right? That doesn't mean that you have to anchor yourself in one spot. Stay here, scan the room, see if there's anything, like if you see an anomaly on the camera or anything, obviously direct your partner to it. If you don't, let them search. You've already scanned all these things, so I have a couch here, I have a chair here, I have a couch. Go drop the camera, go search them physically, make sure that you're not missing something, and then you can go from there. So yes, it is a very, very good tool. It does enhance our search. It does help us find victims a lot quicker than our hands, but just know when and where to implement it. Know what you're looking at, understand every camera is different. You're going to need to know your color modes. If you're dealing with colors, you're going to need to learn how to read grayscale. If you're dealing with like an MSA camera that only reads grays. So just understand your limitations of your thermal imager too, if you choose to use it in a search. But yes, it can absolutely increase your efficiency. Do you want to take a break, Nick?
Thank you, brother. That was a great answer. Yeah, that was a great answer. Let's take a quick break. And so let's meet back here in 5 minutes. I got 20:49 on my clock. At 20:54, we'll go live again.
Sounds good.
So we got an idea, Sean. We're thinking if you call in off Wi-Fi, maybe we'll get rid of any Wi-Fi problems that we have. I say we. I meant Lane.
Your team. Let's see here. Is it cutting out on the phone? Is that what the deal is?
It's all I know is the audio is the issue.
All right, let me see. I need to find a number to dial. What's the number of the dial from the email? Do you know?
Well, you can just stay on there, just go off Wi-Fi and see if it kicks you off. And if it does, you can still do this stuff just off Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm off Wi-Fi now.
Okay, perfect. Let's try that and see if it works better for us. I don't know what's causing this. If it is a Wi-Fi issue, that would be my assumption. So hopefully this would fix it. Lane is smarter than me. Yeah, absolutely it is. especially at the end of the day when everybody's sitting up in their rooms and scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and looking
Yeah,
at
I'm sure that's what they're scrolling through.
right, looking at other adult themed websites.
Right. Let me see. See if I can get this in. I don't know. If I'm talking too fast for everybody, just let me know. These
Yeah, I don't think so.
these online classes, man, they're hard to do because I can't see anybody. And like I'm a very much like to look at people in the face when I'm talking, and and it's tough.
No, your flow is good, man. You're killing this class right now, but it is
Thanks,
hard.
man.
It's hard when you don't get that like feedback from anybody else, and it feels like you've been talking for an hour and you don't know if people are awake or asleep. So I totally hear you, man.
Yeah, you're just mumbling on.
Right?
But well, good, man. I'm glad it's going well. So
This long side, short side, is that Nick's? Did he come up with that, or did you come up with this?
So I learned this from Nick, actually.
Okay. I kind of figured as much since he had that article.
Yeah. So here's the weird thing about this. Like, I never really gave it a name, but I understood the kind of premise behind it.
Absolutely.
And when he wrote his article, I called him. I was like, dude, you have no idea what you just did to my mind. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you took something that I couldn't really explain and put it into words that makes total sense, right? I said, so kudos to you. And then I told him that I was going to steal it for this class that I was doing. And he said, okay, great. So I told him, I was like, what's that?
I was going to say, speaking of great articles, your Firehouse Next Generation one was awesome, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. The first one that came out, they edited a lot of stuff, which they do. I get it. That's fine. No big deal. But I got one. There's one. I'll send it to you. There's one that's in September coming out in fire engineering. It's about search size up.
I love it. I can't wait to dig into that one.
Yeah.
It's such a neglected. I mean, I know everybody talks about size up, but I feel like it's just this box that we check, and people think a size up is your arrival report of what the first in company states over the radio. And they don't do a legitimate size up. All they're looking for is fire and smoke. And there's a term in football called like a dumb run, where you see some guy out there and he's all over the place, and every once in a while he'll make an amazing play, but for every amazing play that he makes, he fucks up and is out of position on 5 or 6 plays because he's just out there, he's running fast, but he doesn't know what the fuck he should be looking for. And I feel like we do the same thing on size ups, and for too many people too often it's just kind of this dumb walk. Whether it's the walk to the building or it's the walk around the building. And I really wish that we would I'm excited because Gary's in next week, and Gary does a really good job talking about this. But I feel like it's something that if we had a couple classes on this, the entirety of the fire service would redshift and be a little bit more efficient on their fire grounds.
Oh, I think so too, man. I mean, that's really like the biggest thing for me is, like, when I teach the searchable versus survivable class, I have a thing in there for size up. But I don't tell anybody like what they're doing. I go like, hey, somebody size this fire up for me, right?
Yep.
And almost every single time, dude, they give me a fire size up, basic canned fire size up. Mm-hmm. I'm like, great. Did you see anything out of the ordinary? And then you start talking about it, and you're like, well, what about this? Like, you got to understand, like, dude, we have an entry problem, and you didn't even acknowledge it, and you're about ready to send crews inside to go search, and if you don't address that entry problem, it becomes an egress problem very quick. So, like, start thinking more about the full picture when it relates to like sending crews in for search, and not just your quick little fire size up.
Yeah, well said, man. All right. Well, sorry about that, Lane. Thank you to Chris and Josh for setting those as well. And without further ado, let's get back to the most handsome man that is talking to us right now.
Oh, you're too kind. Too kind. So we don't have a terrible amount. I built this out so that we can leave room for discussion. So if we end super early, please don't hesitate to ask questions. If you want clarification, I can do that too. So as I was talking to Nick during the break, long side, short side. So my buddy Nick Peppard, he actually brought this to my attention. For years, I've been doing this, and I didn't really call it anything, and I didn't really know how to explain it to anybody. I just kind of knew it existed, right? So he wrote an article on fire engineering called "The Long and Short of It," and this is what it pretty much discussed. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Note version of that, because this particular part really is important for us when it comes to either searching off the line or doing a split search. So pretty much when we talk about long side, short side, we understand that when we perform a fire attack, that hose line typically creates that long side or short side of the building. Now, where do we get that from? Well, the smaller, I'll show you on the next one. The smaller geographical area in the layout, in most cases, constitutes what's called the short side. And the long side would be anything opposite of the attack line, right? If that makes sense to anybody. So just think about a line, the side that you're fighting fire on is generally your short side, and then everything off to that is your long side. This is really effective for us because the engine can affect a search of that short side area as the line is advancing. So what that looks like to us, where is it? A clicker would stop working. Hold on 1 second. All right, what that looks like to us is this. So you have, in this picture, you have going through the front, right? You have a bedroom off to your right, living room, dining room, kitchen. But most of your bedrooms are off to the left. Fire's here in the center room, number 3 there. This hand line now identifies everything from that fire room and that side of the structure, all this right here, as the short side, leaving this as the long side. And we've kind of hit on this a couple of times already in the class, but the benefit to this is that, hey, look, line's in place here. Now the heel man searches this bedroom. He's also able to search this bathroom. He's also able to search the laundry room, right? If need be, he could peel off and come and hit this master. While that's going on, your other search team is coming in, right? One guy hits this room, the other guy peels off and starts hitting this. He comes out of this room, starts heading this way. That's why this is called a long side. It's generally more square footage that needs to be searched. So on arrival, what we want to do is inform our second arriving engine or truck company or whoever that happens to be that the fire attack has searched the short side of the structure, and we want to be able to tell them what we found, right? If we found any victims and we need help with removal, or if it's negative and we need them to search the rest of the building or the house. The primary search team, the ones that are being assigned to search, they're going to be able to focus all of their efforts on that long side, which again makes for a quicker search of that larger area, but reduces the overall time that it is needed to complete the primary search. So as we kind of touched on earlier, when you do a split search of any kind, you could pretty much take your primary search and cut it in half. And that is a huge benefit to us. So where this is extremely beneficial is in our residential occupancies, mostly like single-story homes and apartments, in which like all of our interior operations are going to be typically on the same level. But you can implement this and have success on other types of structures if you do it properly and you train on it and you truly understand it. What makes the tactic of long side, short side so effective is, one, you're placing the attack crew closest to the fire, right? And we know that's where occupants are most severely threatened. But this has a really, really profound impact on bedroom fires, right? Because it places our nozzle team in a position to search two critical areas in rapid succession, right? You're getting the egress path from the front door to the fire, and you're getting all of the sleeping areas. So if we can get a line in place and clear those two high target areas immediately, man, our chances of rescuing somebody and then having a positive outcome are pretty good. Our chances of locating them in a timely manner are pretty good, right? I don't know about anybody who's on this, but I've been on enough fires where a primary search gets done and you start doing other things. And next thing you know, you hear primary search complete. You're like, what the hell? That seems like it took forever. Like they're just now getting done with that. So by implementing this tactic, you can avoid having that happen to you. So when we're talking about the attack crew accelerating the primary search, it also helps direct our later arriving search teams, because it gives them important updates on fires, landmarks, or I'm sorry, fire conditions, landmarks in the structure, any victims. Most importantly, though, our building layout. So what that gives us, and we talked earlier in this saying we have to have a plan, right? If you don't have a plan, you're going to fail. Adapting this to your search plan is only going to support a comprehensive and systematic search. And that's what we really need to strive for. Our effectiveness is only going to be measured in time and results. And that's how we work in our profession, unfortunately, right? So searching off the hand line needs to be something, I know we've talked about it and everything else, and it sounds great, but you got to plan and drill on this thing regularly. If you really want it to be a true force multiplier for your crew, and you want it to have any significant impact on the fire ground, this is something that you're going to have to practice a lot. It's a lot of communication. It's a lot of trust, right? You have to build those fundamental skills and trust within each other. You have to know that when you're doing this, that the person that's doing, the person who's splitting from you has a good head on their shoulders, right? The last thing we want to do with doing something like this is just assume that people know what to do and send them off on their way. And then we have a mayday or a lost firefighter or something like that, because their understanding of what the objective was not very clear. All right. So we have some search tips. When we're searching, like we all go back to the fire academy, right? You hear fire department, anyone in here? Like that's a pretty common thing. I'm not saying don't do that, but do it properly if you're going to do it. If you're calling out for victims, make sure you hold your breath for a little bit and you listen and don't move. I'd say probably like a 3 to 4 second window is long enough. Because if you don't do that and you just say, fire department, anyone in here, and you're going on, you're banging on shit, and you're just making all kinds of noise, you could very well miss that faint cry. And then it renders the whole reason pointless. Also doing what? Using more air that's not necessary. For the person who had a question with the thermal imager, here's another answer for you. When you're using it and you scan first and then search, you don't want to move while looking through your thermal imaging screen, because what that's going to do is going to make it skip, right? It's going to make it skip. You also have to realize that you have a narrowed view and your depth perception is relatively poor when using that camera. So stay put, do your scan, drop it, and then move. If you don't, you're going to have a lot of tunnel vision if you're continually looking through that thermal imaging camera and all you're doing is delaying the search and you're also you're delaying your ability to notice any change in conditions, whether it be smoke or fire or anything like that. So understand that thermal imagers are not going to be able to see everything, right? They see things in the infrared spectrum, and they're not an end all be all. So don't over rely on it when you're trying to clear an area. If you find a victim, right, one of the best things we can do, aside from announcing it, right? So we announce Mayday in 3 because it's urgent traffic. We want to be able to announce our victims in 3 too. So we want to be able to say victim, 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 very clear and precise, so people know, right? The next thing, just like we do a 360 of our building so we can get a full view and make sure we're not missing something, we do that 360 sweep around our victims, because where there's one, there's most likely two, especially when it comes to families and small children, all right? So just because you find a victim, don't be so quick to put your hands on them and start pulling. Make sure you do your diligence to sweep around and make sure there's nobody else in that immediate area. Because if there is, then you have to do what? You have to address it, right? You have to call for another team or call your partner to come help because now you got two victims. Whatever the situation is, right? We want to make sure that we clear that immediate area first. So once we do remove them, don't just call that area good. Yeah, we found them, great. We removed them, awesome, moving on. Finish your search of that area. Continue searching that same area that you located the victim in, right? And go back and continue, like, for example, if you found them on a bed, you don't go back there. Go back to that spot. Finish that search of the bed. Finish the search of that area, everything else, okay? Don't just say, I found a victim in the bedroom. That must be it. Moving on. You're going to miss somebody, or you have a high potential of missing somebody. One of the things I see in training when it comes to search, I can't stand it, is throwing things, flipping furniture over, all that. I don't know where that was ever taught or why, but don't do it. One, your furniture is assisting you in your orientation of that structure. You go moving it, you've changed the orientation. Two, you're running the risk of throwing something over somebody to very, very well cover up a victim, right? And never find them because you decided it's a great idea to throw couch cushions over somewhere, right? You don't need to do it. So when we are thinking about tools, it's important to bring a tool. I was saying I keep my eye on the outside and things like that. You never know when you're going to need to force an interior door or for what reason, right? So maybe conditions change. Maybe the door is burnt through, right? This is more for like a BDS situation, but maybe the door is burnt through and you need your tool to take an interior door and block that flow path, right? You're gonna find yourself in a really bad way if you just left your tool at the front door or you never brought one in. So make sure that I'm not a fan of sweeping with a tool while I'm searching, but I do bring one for those reasons. What else can I tell you about that? We hit cribs. We wanna know with cribs. Don't reach up and into the crib. Sit down there. You're in that tripod position like this guy in this picture is. Roll that crib to you. Any weight is gonna fall to the bottom. You're gonna feel it. You'll be able to sweep in there and pick that baby up and keep that baby low in the elements where they belong. Reaching in and over, you're going to pick that baby and bring them right up into a higher place where they don't need to be, right? So definitely roll cribs for it. Sift through all the piles of clothes, right? Pick them up. Feel some weight in there. When we do search training, we put a laundry basket in there and put like a weighted baby doll in there, and just to see how many people are going to actually put their hands in there and lift it up. Children are going to hide under that stuff. That's if they feel safe, right? And you'd be surprised how many people just push it out of their way. And it's not a trick. We're not trying to trick anybody. We're just trying to make you better. make you more aware of possibilities, because I don't think any one of us wants to possibly miss somebody, but it happens. And that, you're going to think about that for a long time, and what if the would have, should have, could have. So if you take anything away from today about searching and searching for kids and stuff, that's probably a big one, right? Put your hands on things and feel them. That's going to tell you a lot more than a tool. Tool is dumb, does not have any feelings. You have really no idea what you're hitting. And a lot of times people don't even go to investigate what they just hit. So you can't replace your hands. When we're talking about searching anything less than high visibility, the crews need to get down on the ground. Like, I understand there's that whole like, oh, if you can see your feet walk, I think that's garbage. I'm personally going to tell you, get below the smoke. That's where you want to be. You do no good if your head's in the smoke. Yeah, great, I can see my feet, but I can't see anything else because my head's in the smoke. So what's the point, right? So get down to that level where you can be able to see. And you might have to adapt your positioning as you go, especially when you're talking about order position or order conditions. That's huge, man. Like you get into some of those. A split search is probably not something I would recommend doing in this type of ordering conditions. You have a lot of stuff. Generally, there's only pathways depending on how severe for you to search. And you don't want to be climbing up and over things either. So this is probably going to be more where your like oriented search comes into play. Thermal imager, sure, if you think you can use it, but like I said, you're going to have a lot of stuff in there that's going to act as an insulator, so you may not see very well. So just something to consider, on that stuff. Mostly, what are we feeling for when we go ahead and search? Is we're feeling for contour and weight. So I said all that stuff to pretty much cover these couple bullet points for you. It's really moving with a purpose, right? That's what we're after. When we talk about aggression is not a bad thing in the fire service. Aggression is not a bad thing in our personal lives. It just gets misunderstood. Okay. I was talking to Chief Thompson, right? And he brought these up, and these are the different levels of aggression that he feels. And I started thinking about it, and you know what? It's true. I've seen every single one of these. The question is, which one do you want to be? Where do we want to be? I tell you that I would like us to see being right there at sensible, right? Sensible because it's managed and has purpose. A lot of times, especially in the search world, we come to be reckless and not reckless, in your traditional form of recklessness, but blind and emotional, right? A lot of the things that we're doing, we're just kind of going through the motions. We're screaming at each other, we're yelling, like you throw in the mix that maybe you do have a victim. Now you let your emotions take over and it just becomes chaos. What we want to avoid completely is the irresponsible and irrelevant, right? We cannot be telling people that we're going to go save their life and we're going to go into these buildings and come find you and rescue you if we're clueless and careless and we don't even know what it is that we're supposed to do. At the same time, when we have irrelevant, fear-driven, no aggression, right? That's where you get the people, and if this pisses anyone off, I apologize, but it's true. You get the people that say, well, risk a lot, save a lot, not 2 in, 2 out, or whatever excuse they want to use as a reason why they didn't do anything, because they don't know. They're so filled with fear, right? The problem with this is that we have so many people looking for security instead of opportunity. We are opportunists. We are firefighters. That is what we do. We seek opportunities out to do what we're supposed to do, right? So there's a huge, huge difference between, you know, somebody who doesn't understand something and somebody who does understand something, but in a calculated manner makes a decision that they need to make, right? So we're looking at this. We're looking at 58% primary search, right? These are great statistics. However, 37% of the time, last I checked anyway, Nick can correct me if it's different now. 37% of our victims were found by split searches. And I think it's 61% survival rate. Does that sound right, Nick?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. So I didn't put it up on here because this is a slide that I have for my other search class. But I just wanted to throw that out there. That, yeah, it might sound like we're not finding a lot of people, but honestly, I'm gonna tell you how it is. I don't care if that number is 1%. That's a person, right? So it could be 1% with a 61% survival rate, and I'll take it. The point that we need to understand with these percentages is it shows us where we're winning, but it also shows us where we need improvement. All right, 37% on the split search. I think that's pretty good considering how new the survey is, and you know that it is strictly voluntary. I'd be willing to bet that number is actually significantly higher. We just don't know it yet. And I wouldn't not be surprised if over time, as we start accumulating more and more data on fires, that we start seeing that number drastically increase and start becoming one of the highest. Right now, I believe the highest is VES, or window initiated searches, whatever you want to call it. So we understand that our closed doors are open opportunities, right? And they are because they provide our isolated survivable space, right? But a certainty of a door being closed is only going to be achieved by completing a thorough search. Plain and simple. That is the only way we're going to know for sure. Like, we talk about size ups and we can have all these indications from the exterior all we want, but really, if we want to know what's truly happening on the interior, we have to occupy the interior, right? My problem is with this, right? If we're telling our citizens to close their door at night because it's going to save their life, and we're doing these campaigns like close your door, or, you know, close before you doze, like, we owe it to them to get our asses inside there and find them, right? We can't be hypocrites. How are we supposed to tell people do this and then we do nothing? Doesn't make any sense, right? We have to do what we're telling them we will do. They're listening to us because they believe we're coming, as we should be. So if we know that a closed door provides these awesome opportunities for us, right? And we're inside and we're doing it, how about we maximize that opportunity by splitting our crew and covering more than one room at a time? Here's what this room looks like, right? Obviously, if somebody was in there, they have a great potential to survive that environment versus if it was left open. And that is why we prioritize open doors over closed doors when it comes to searches. This is also why, as we're moving down hallways, whether it be with a hand line or for the search, that we close the door until we're ready to come back and search it. 26% of our victims were found behind closed doors, and they have an 86% survival rate. That's excellent. You know, that's probably, like I said, one of the best things that you can hope for.
Hey, Sean, can you go back to that real quick?
Yeah, but
can you use that bed there? You went over cribs earlier, but can you use that bed there for us as a visual and kind of talk about how you're searching like beds and bunk beds and under them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to this bed, let me grab my mouse over here so you can see. So when it comes in here, if I'm coming in this room, generally, as you see here, like there's a mirror here and stuff like that. So somewhere along the lines here, there's going to be a window. I'm not really concerned about that right now. I'm coming in, I'm going to shut this door behind me, and realistically, most of the time, what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to hit this with my head or something and know like, oh shit, it's a bed. So I don't crawl on top of beds, to be honest. What I do is this blanket and stuff here. I'm just going to pull that straight to me. I'm going to pull it to me. If there's any person in there or animal, I'm going to feel that weight. The reason I do that is if there is somebody in there and I get them to the floor, I have them wrapped up in something that can help that helps aid me in removing them, right? If it's not, then I go ahead and I do that. And then I grab the sheet and I do the same thing. All right. The reason I do that is a lot of times people will come up on this bed and they'll kind of do like that snow angel thing and they didn't really search anything. Now, if this bed is up against the wall, I'm still going to get up on there and I'm going to check that little crevice right there between the wall, make sure like nobody rolls into it, especially like toddler or something like that. I want to make sure that that's it. Once that top piece is done, what I do is I have a box light that I carry in, and I also have a chest light. I get as low as I can, and I stand with my box light underneath here. And then if I can reach it and clear it with my arms, I will. If it's further back, I just kind of stick my foot underneath there, and I start sweeping. I make my way around so I can clear that whole space. That's my number one priority. Then what I do from there is I generally go to the closet. Like I said, I don't do this whole like, systematic pattern. I generally know a layout, so I'll do the bed, then I'll hit the closet, and then I'll come back and I'll clean up the rest. One thing I do want to point out though, when we're searching rooms, is I know like the fire academy and most search places tell you to keep your hand on the wall, because not just for orientation, but you're going to find a window or a door. Well, here's what I do. Anytime I take a step or a slide, because I try and tripod it as much as possible, and I slide forward, like I've already searched all this, I come here, I'm going to slide forward. I take my hand, I hit bottom, middle, high, just real quick, boom, boom, boom. The reason I'm doing that is because if this is a wall and there's a window right here, I will know immediately that this sounds like a wall and that sounds like. If it's a door, like if this all sounds like a wall and I slide up and I do it again, and it doesn't sound like that, it's more hollow than this, then I probably have a door there. So in the environments where I can't see all that well, that allows me to, one, stay oriented to my room for the search, but also know like, hey, I just hit a window or a door back there. Mentally note it and move on. So that's how I search bedroom. Bunk beds, like Nick was saying, I do the top one first, and then I come down to the bottom, and then underneath all the way. I have found sometimes this is a little high, but there are longer dressers that are a little lower that I have found. Sometimes they have like these little bassinets that, for whatever reason, the parents put up on those dressers, and they have it for either changing or whatever they do. So don't just not search the top of those because you think it's just a dresser. It's very important to still clear all those spots. Does that answer your question for you, Nick?
Yeah, I think that was perfect. Lane, did that get that for you?
Yeah, I think that was a good combo with what Chief Swaby talked about last week, hitting bunk beds, once you hit a bed, go up, hit the bunk bed first, and then your angle as well. I think between the two of you, hit it really well.
And we got about 5 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, don't be shy. We got one of the brightest minds here at our disposal. So don't be shy. Let's milk this guy for all he's worth.
I'm not worth anything, but you can milk me. Right? I've got nipples, Greg. Can you milk me? So we look at hose line versus recorded rescues. 11% of the time they have a hose line. That doesn't mean that they're not successful searching with a hose line, but we're more mobile without one, right? And if we do this properly and we stay aware of our environment and we know our layouts and we're communicating and staying up to date on everything, we can do a lot of good without a hand line, even for the fire, So just something to note there. Victim removal is huge for me. One thing I want to talk about this, you see this victim coming down a ladder. This is rescue, right? So search and rescue are not the same thing. First step in removing the victim is for us to actually locate them. That's our search. Rescuing comes from physically removing them from the structure itself, right? Understand that if you're only able to accomplish one of these, nobody's life is getting saved, right? You could be the best searcher in the world, but if you can't remove that victim, you're pointless, right? It's pointless for the victim too. You're no good to anybody. So make sure that as much as you practice search, you're practicing removal. And here's our removal time. Look at this. Most of the time should take less than 2 minutes, right? That's where we're getting the highest percentage. As we keep going on and on and on, it goes down. So I'd say 2 minutes or less is what you're looking at an acceptable time frame. Obviously, you're going to have variables, and that's fine, but shoot for that 2 minute mark. Dirty drags. When you find somebody, dirty drag is a great way to go. Just grab them and go. I'm not really one on gimmicks and tricks. I'm not a fan of webbing. I know it does have a place, and that is fine, but it's certainly not my go-to. Practice quick drags. That's going to be your most successful way. So I practice leg or feet first drags. That's my preferred method. I'll show you. That's pretty much, that's how I am going to get majority of my victims, because not because it looks cool and it's easy and all that other stuff, but it keeps me low in the space. A lot of times, when you're going into spaces, like, conditions are not always the best. So a larger frame victim, things like that, this is probably going to be the preferred way to go. This helps keep you and them low. If conditions are okay, then if you can stand up and drag them, then stand up and drag them. Like, that's fine too. But I urge everybody to practice this, because generally we practice one way to do something, but our fires are never the same, and you're not going to experience the same situation all the time. So what happens when you are getting pushed down, and the only thing you've ever practiced is how to drag somebody standing up? This method, as well as it keeps you low in the space, also reserves a lot of energy, which is very, very crucial for the actual removal process. Right? So when you look at the number of rescuers needed for removal, 74% of our rescues only needed one person. So challenge yourself. How much weight can you move alone? You need to find out, because that's going to tell you, when you put your hand on a victim, if you're going to be able to if this is something you're going to be able to do fairly easy by yourself, or if you're going to need help. Now, that doesn't mean you sit and do nothing if you need help. You still continue to remove the victim. But at this point, you have met or exceeded your own personal limitations. And it's about the victim. It's not about you or your ego or a sense of pride. So call for the help if you need the help.
And Sean, real quick, how big are you?
I am 5'8" and 175 pounds.
Perfect. That's a perfectly average, normal height, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
But some people like to think that we're short, and that's fine. If they want to judge us, that's on them. But as a smaller dude, you always pick out the biggest person in class and attempt to move them. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I do that for a reason.
What's that reason?
One, it's for me to continually challenge myself and make sure that I know where my limits are personally. But two, it's so the students can see that they can do this too, right? There's no secret to this success. It's just all about proper technique. And a lot of people will look at a person and say, "No, I can't do that. That person's too big. Are you crazy?" And they've already set themselves up for failure. And realistically, when I show them, "Okay, fine, let me do it. I can do it," all of a sudden the dynamic changes. Like, everybody now wants to be the person that gets that heavier person out of the window. And I love that. It's by design, because once you get out of your own mind, right, and you realize that a lot of things are possible, and this is in a very controlled environment. Imagine what you can do when your adrenaline is going through the roof, right? You're gonna be able to do more than you think then. So do it in training, be successful there, have the confidence to know that you can do it. And then when it's real, you're not going to have any issues. So that's the reason why I do it. It's a huge confidence booster.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. If someone who's 5'8" and 175 pounds can do this, you know, and no disrespect to you, Sean, I'm saying this because I'm about the same size. Anybody can do a lot of these things.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. And so here's a video. This was actually taken here at the Orlando Fire Conference last year. It's my buddy Robert Ramirez. He's at that point he's about 275. This is me getting to him, setting him up for the removal process, dragging him to the window, and lifting him up and out by myself, with very little effort.
We don't have audio on this, Sean. Can you walk us through what you're saying here?
So, small person.
It's kind of cutting out on us a little bit, Sean.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay. So essentially, what I'm walking you through is what you do is I'm telling this crew that I'm a small person, and this guy's got about 100 pounds on me. All right. So the purpose of me coming through them and grabbing the ankles is to drop all that weight to the torso, right? Because when I cross the ankles and I put it under and I turn, what that does is actually creates a pinch point. I pinch their weight between my thigh and the back of my shoulder. So as I'm pulling backwards and I'm scooting, let's say their skin is falling off, or I hit something and I flip or whatever, I'm not going to lose that progress that I have. It's going to stop right behind my shoulder. And all I have to do is upright myself, reposition, and continue into the drag. Now, once I get to the window, what I tell them is you have to put your body like a spring, right? A lot of people want to put the butt right up against the heels, and that might work for some people, but for like larger people and things like that, what's going to happen is you're going to load it and you're going to go to lift, and their head's going to just hit right out to the wall because they're too close. So you've got to really learn how to and position them. What I have found that works the best is if you see where the video is paused right now, here's my knees and there's their knees. You can pinch their knees together in between your knees like this and squat down. That's relatively a good position for most people. Then you don't want to lose this, so you want to capture this. So what you do is you take this hand, you push the weight over this way, and then once it's in and you step over, you're kind of like straddling them with both hands. You step over and then you slide. Don't ever let go of this leg with this hand, because if you do, all of your momentum is gone. You get under their neck and you lift aggressively with your palm, like just like if you're choking them, just grab their neck and just throw them straight forward and capture that. When you do this, that's captured here and in the torso, is just going to kind of sandwich load like a spring. What that allows you to do is once you get underneath that, you start to push forward, their body naturally springs forward, and you just give them a good shove. They'll spring right up and over out to the window. So what that looks like in real time is this. Now, if you look, what I did is I grabbed him right by his lats, right under there. That's a good position for him. You may have to adjust your hand position. Sometimes going down on the hips and pushing up for like longer people that are tall, that works the best. Sometimes right under the lats where you can get a good bite on some like smaller frame people. That's going to give you a lot more leverage. So it's a matter of just knowing, first one, setting it up properly, but two, knowing how to manipulate the victim's body and their weight to work to your advantage. So we're gonna close this all out here. This is just the total survival rate of all of our recorded rescues to the last update of the survey that I had. 61% of the time when we rescued somebody, they lived. Right? Unfortunately, 39 deceased. But ultimately, if we want to be successful at rescuing and at searching, we have to understand that these incidences are not planned. They happen when we're prepared for the opportunities. So you have to put in a lot of time, effort, and energy into all your skills, fine-tune them constantly. You know, and if something doesn't work for you, understand the fire ground's the greatest equalizer, right? You're going to know very, very quick what works and what doesn't. So if it doesn't work, fix it. Figure out what does work. So the next time you're in that situation, you have a game plan. We get ourselves in trouble because we don't know when to switch our game plan. I see it all the time, especially with victim removal. We will do the same thing over and over and over and over, and it's not working. But we're so damn stubborn that we're determined that it will eventually work. It's not. It's not going to. So know when to switch plan A to plan B to plan C, and have training in all those methods to help you in that situation. So this is directly from Firefighter Rescue Survey, essentially. What does it all mean? We understand that all the data is just one part of the picture, right? We're always going to need to have more analysis. So our intent is to gather as much info from actual rescues, right? That's how we become more effective and efficient. You know, we talk to each other, what worked, what didn't, all those things. You have to couple it with more tools and training. The biggest thing that we can do that's going to make us fail is just being in our heads, right? We want to steer clear of biases. The only thing we're after is proven data, right? I don't really care about people's opinions on what happens and all that stuff because, you know, we could talk about this all day, but it's really fact versus fiction. If I want a nice story, I'll read a fiction book, but I'm not after a nice story. I'm after facts, and I want to know what works, okay? So the ultimate goal is when we couple all of that together, we want to increase our chances of saving a life, whether that be our own, another firefighter, or a civilian. It's important that we have the facts. Down here, you guys take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. I put this in here because this is what happens, right? This is direct from a lawsuit for a fire department for a wrongful death because the fire department didn't do what they were supposed to do, right? More importantly, this right here, violation of conscious disregard for its basic training and standard operating procedures. If anybody thinks that we can just go up and do this job half-assed and have no consequences, they're wrong. I have a whole list of articles and lawsuits of fire departments getting sued for wrongful deaths because they did not do what they were supposed to do, right? So understand that, like, if we're going to put policies and procedures in effect, or we're going to have awesome mission statements like to protect lives and save property, like, you better be prepared to show up and do exactly what you said, because the citizens, they're tired of us not getting, having an answer for our poor decisions. They're starting to take action. And this goes all the way back from, I think it's about 2018. This one was in 2017. The lawsuit was filed in 2018. Point is that it's happening. It's happening pretty frequent. And you can find all this on Fire Law Blog. It's all on there. So just make sure whatever it is that we're doing, we're making sure it's the right thing. Our policies and procedures align with that, and we're constantly up to date on best practice. So this is where you can find me. This is all my contact information. Realistically, if you didn't get anything out of the class today, I just want to leave you with 3 things that every firefighter needs to be very, very efficient at. And that is searches, fire attack, and hose management, right? The third one being firefighter rescue, whether it be self-rescue or RIT. The reason why those are so important, those three things, is those are all the things that are going to save our asses or someone else's. Those are pretty much the core principles of what we do right there on a fire ground. So it's important that we get it right. So that's all I have for you guys today. I appreciate your time. I know we went a little bit over, but if you guys have any questions, by all means, fire away.
Well, thank you so much, brother. If any questions come in, we'll make sure we ask them. I just want to make sure that we say thank you. Appreciate your time and your patience as we work through some of those audio issues. For all the listeners, I'm sure you probably all know this already, but make sure you check out Build Your Culture. Make sure that you check out Sean's most recent article in Firehouse. Make sure you check out the Make Do Suburban Fireman podcast. And anywhere Sean is, if you get a chance to see him, you won't be disappointed. Puts on a great class and an amazing brother. I got about 20 questions, Sean, personally, but I'll just in interest of everybody's time, I'll hold off. I'd set you up with some softballs by asking about 2 in, 2 out, and a couple other things, but just in the interest of time, we'll get out of here tonight. But thank you so much, brother. This was a great class. I really appreciate it. For everyone listening, we have 2 classes left. On March 2nd, we have Gary Lane talking about engine-based search. And on March 9th, we had Chief Brush talking about rescue. So the last 2 weeks should be pretty awesome. And I appreciate it. If anyone has any comments on how these classes are going or ways that we can enhance this, as always, just reach out and let us know. So thank you, Sean. Thank you, Lane. Thank you, everybody else, man. Oh, hold on 1 sec. Okay, disregard. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Everyone have a great night.